myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you got to step outside of yourself, and how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others through this time?
And so I just started praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? I mean, the people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron. Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask you to count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or a sign, this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment for Love Akron forever.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, Greater Akron. I am your host, Coach Kemp A, Executive Director of Love Akron, and welcome to another installment of Love Akron Live on today, Wednesday, February the 24th, which is a special day in my household because it's my father's birthday today. So happy birthday to my father out there, Melvin Boyd. Man, love you. Had a great opportunity to talk to him earlier. But really excited about this show today because we're gonna lean into some of those uncomfortable spaces that I always talk about. We have to lean into because what we know is through this season of pandemic, whether it's COVID, whether it's the racial tension, or even now the economic pandemic that we're going through, what we know is that things have been revealed to us. The season of the pandemic, especially COVID, has become a great revealer. And so we're going to get into some real conversation today. And I just want to say this is the last week of celebrating Black history. So I think it's important for us to really look at a quote that Dr. King said, where he says, with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair, and let me say distrust, a stone of hope. So we will be able to hew out with this faith, we'll be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. And so I'm going to do something a little different. And as kind of our bumper was playing at the beginning, and my guests don't know I'm going to roll it out this way, but I had a thought about something. And you know, we always talk about the why, the why, the why. So I'm going to go in reverse. Okay. I'm going to kind of talk about the way first, and then talk about, if you will, the what, and then the why. Okay, so I'm going to do that a little bit backwards. And doing that, you know, you ever watched a really good movie, you know, maybe a long time ago, and it made you think, and you said, wow, man, where was I sitting at when I first watched that movie? And so I was thinking today that this episode of Love Akron Live actually started about 3 months ago. Now, a lot of you don't know that. I didn't even know it at the time, but I received a call from someone I'd never met before, didn't know who she is or what she did or anything, but I received a call and she left a message, but her name was Bronlynn Thurman, and she is the program officer for the GAR Foundation. He just, you know, Bronlynn, you just happened to call me. I think it was about 3 months ago, am I right? And there was a phone call that we were having, and you were just kind of giving me, like, you were asking me questions about, you know, kind of Love Akron and the things that we're doing. And then you started to have a conversation with me about some of the things that were going on here. So again, we're not going to get into the why those things. Right now, we're just kind of talking about the what, and what that conversation between you and I kind of led us to today.
Yeah. Do you? Oh, I'm gonna have to go back in my my Rolodex of memory here. I think I just, you know, reached out at that point. I had, you know, been talking to a lot of, you know, smart people about what was happening in, you know, in our nation, and especially in Akron, with regards to the pandemic, and, you know, touched on, you know, the racial uprising. And I just kind of, you know, reached out and wanted to get a better understanding of what Love Akron was doing. And I think at that point, I believe I had presented this, you know, idea, or I was like, GAR wants to do something in the space. GAR wanted to, we needed to figure out what we could do to help our community in a way that made sense. And I think at that point, I was, you know, calling a lot of great neighborhood and community-based organizations to talk about what I was thinking.
And that's good, because here's the beautiful thing about just when things happen, because I'm looking back on that, and I don't even think it was an agenda. It was just like, hey, I got your number. These are some things that are on my heart, and what's your thoughts? What's going on in Love Akron? And it just really morphed into this really great conversation, to where, again, everybody has to understand when I say this, there's really no pun intended, but there's so much love that people have for Akron that it just causes us and compels us to reach out to people and to say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening, but hey, here's what we're doing, because we're seeing these things take place on a national level. But man, if we don't get ourselves prepared, it's going to hit us locally. So that conversation, the first of many conversations with Bronlynn, was just us really kind of getting to know one another and kind of hearing her heart and kind of hearing what the heart of GR. Again, we're talking about kind of right now the what. We're going to get into the why, because the why is a really, I think, subject. It's an elephant in the room type of a subject, if you will. But I think we have to talk about it. And that's why we do Love Akron Live with change makers like Bronlynn. So Bronlynn, thanks so much for being on with us today. And I know you didn't come by yourself. So because I know you came with backup. And if you're going to come with backup, you might as well come on with the president of the organization. Christine Meyer is with us as well. She is the president of GAR Foundation. Christine, thank you so much for being with us and all the great work that you all are doing within Greater Akron. How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be Bronlynn's backup today.
There you go. Well, hey, if you're going to come correct, come with all the forces that you have. And so we love it. Tell me, Christine, this. During this season that we've been in of the pandemic, right, and all the things that are going on, what has COVID-19, what has it revealed regarding the relationships that you see that are happening within the African-American community and healthcare?
That's a great question. It's a hard question because a lot of what has been revealed is hard to talk about. I think when you got that call from Bronlynn, we had sent her on I don't want to say a wild goose chase, but we said, hey, Bronlynn, just go explore, go talk to a bunch of interesting people and get close to the problems that people are seeing out there and are experiencing, to try to learn more and look for themes, and a theme that she heard repeatedly. I'm certain she heard it from you, Coach, and many others who she talked to, is this idea that, we've got a health pandemic that is dramatically affecting communities of color, and the gap between the problem, the health problem, and the solution, the healthcare systems that could do better testing, that could provide care, the gap between those two was a lack of trust. And by the way, there were lots of good reasons dating decades or centuries as to why there would be a lack of trust. And that I think is a huge impediment to people getting help, to people accessing resources, information, healthcare, the vaccine, which is the phase we're in now, because you could not surmount that chasm of mistrust. And that's something she heard an awful lot of, that we wanted to try to attack if we could.
Yeah. Man, I appreciate that, because so many times we can have the acknowledgement of a thing, but then not have anything to do, or, because it is messy, it is sticky, it is hard to talk about and harder. We kind of move away from it. What I appreciate about GAR is that you guys have gone in face first, not even feet first. You kind of delve into this space to say, hey, listen, first of all, let's acknowledge it for what it is, which is kind of the first step. But then you're saying, hey, what is it that we can do about it? So we're going to get to the doing about it. But first, because I don't think any of us on the screen is a medical professional. I know that I'm not. But I did sleep at a Red Roof Inn last night. No, I slept in my house. So I'm not a medical professional, but we do have a couple of medical professionals with us who happen to be African Americans. So I'm curious to see from their perspective if they're seeing the same thing as an issue as far as this distrust piece. So I want to bring on Tristian Reed. She is a medical professional. She's a nurse right here in the city of Akron. Tristian, thank you so much for being on with us today. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. And I also want to break on Ricky Allen. Ricky Allen is an orthopedic technicianist with Cleveland Clinic. Brother Ricky, thanks for coming on and being with us today. He will be here. I'm sure of it. But let me start with you for a second, Tristian. You know, when me and you talked before, you were like, hey, you know, Kemp, listen, I would love to be a part of this because, man, I've probably spent most of my life talking about this, correct? So let me ask you just straight up. We know that COVID-19 has been the great revealer. And one of the things that I think it revealed is not only the disparities in African-American communities when it comes to healthcare, but I think the result of it is there's also this trust that African Americans have with the health community. Being a medical professional, would you say there's some truth to that?
Oh, absolutely. And much like I think most of us, I didn't realize how bad it was until COVID. You know, I public health. And so, you know, usually you just see people ask services when they need, but this particular, especially the rollout of the vaccine, it just really highlighted how much distrust there is and where it's rooted at. And so I think it's been really enlightening for all of us just to see how the historical origins of African Americans' engagement in healthcare has really disbanded us from engaging in healthcare practices and advancement in healthcare, even if it could save our lives.
Man, I really appreciate that. And so now we get into more of a, if you will, more of a solution help type of focus to where we are going to try to hew out, right, a stone of hope out of this mountain of distrust that we know is existing. And again, it may not be everywhere, right? It may not be we're not saying it's every single Black person, right? We're making a very broad statement and saying within the African-American community. And so I want to kind of get into, is Ricky ready? Brother Ricky, come on in. Hey, how you doing? How you doing this afternoon, Ricky? Well, what we're going to work on is we're going to work on some of the solutions to these things. So, you know, going back to our conversation with Bronlynn and kind of how she pulled together this group, being more and this is what I appreciate, GAR. Thank you for being solution focused. Thank you for not being the people sitting up on the porch saying, oh man, look at all that stuff that's going on over there, and just point to it and saying, I'm not going to do anything. But you all came up with this novel idea saying, no, why don't we become a part of the solution to this? So tell us, what are you all doing from your platform?
All right, I'll jump in. So we launched an initiative called No COVID, and No COVID is a program that helps better connect the adult health systems and the neighborhood organizations together in a way that is more authentic and I suppose starting an open and honest conversation, as well as providing resources to the neighborhood, the neighborhoods in which the organizations serve. So we worked with 7 neighborhood-based organizations and the 2 adult health systems to bring them together, focus on culturally relevant COVID and vaccine information, targeting neighborhoods that are most impacted. And we worked with organizations that are trusted service organizations, trusted messengers to the community, to make sure that information is culturally relevant and appropriate.
Yeah, that's good. Go ahead, Christine. I know you have some things you want to add to there.
Yeah, I would just like to add a word or two. As Bronlynn stated, you know, we saw this trust as the big issue, right in the middle of everything. And we knew that you couldn't just say, hey, people in the neighborhoods, hey, community, hey, residents who have all the history that you have and all the family history and all the stories you've grown up with your whole life, true stories of bad experiences. hey, listen, guys, you got to trust the healthcare system on this one. You've got to trust, now's the time to trust. We knew that would be completely ineffective. We know that our voice, would not breach that chasm of trust. And we knew the healthcare system certainly wouldn't have much luck with that either. And again, for all entirely good reasons. People are informed by their experiences and their lived experiences, and that's you can't undo that with a single message. So we thought, who is trusted? To your point earlier, Coach, not every person of color in the city of Akron is the same as everybody. I mean, people are individuals. People live in different neighborhoods. People have different circles of influence. And people respond to messaging in different ways. So we chose those 7 neighborhood organizations that Bronlynn referenced because they had that foundation of trust in their neighborhoods and with the people who were used to seeing them every week or used to seeing them at church or used to working on the neighborhood block watch with them or whatever the case may be. Like we're going to build on the trust that is already there. And by the way, that we knew the neighborhood organizations, the reasons they are trusted is because they would ask hard questions of the healthcare system. They would say, I'm not putting this message out this way. This will not resonate. Like, this is not going to work for my neighborhood. I'll tell you what will. And then, so we kind of set it up that way, giving the neighborhood organizations who know their people and know their communities really well. We gave them all of the ability to figure out what would work well. And we just said, you got some ideas in your neighborhood. People like to have their door knocked on. In your neighborhood, people definitely don't want their door knocked on. Do what works for your neighborhood and your community.
Wow, I love that. So you all are not coming in and saying, hey, here's this linear way of doing this. Here goes the textbook for how to do it. Now go do it the way that we want you to do it and move on. No, what you said is, listen, you already have that. Yeah, you flipped it, which is great. And that's what I think most community organized movements need, right? These community organizations, they're like, man, we're in this neighborhood day in and day out. We know the people, we know the residents. And really, my hat's off to you all for trusting them to carry out this message. And also, I think receiving the insight that you all need to help the language to fit. So I really appreciate that. And again, you're speaking from your perspective of a solution that you all have moved into. Let me go to you, Tristian. What, as a medical professional, day to day, you're in it, right? And you're also an African-American. Like, what have you seen from your perspective when people come in and say, hey, I'm not getting that vaccine. Hey, I heard this, that, and the third, or this. How are you working to help to hew out, again, a stone of hope in this mountain of distrust that is with the healthcare system?
Yeah, Coach, I think it's been talking about personal experiences. That has always been the pillar of approach, specifically in anything related to anything you want anybody to do when there's skepticism in place. So oftentimes I'm meeting with patients and they're concerned about whether it's the vaccine or they're concerned about catching COVID or how transmittable is it, just really having those conversations from personal experiences. So I've gotten the vaccine. I just got my second dose about a week and a half ago. And I'll talk about, what I experienced. Research, how to information, fact versus fiction, giving them the resources, the websites that they could visit, understanding what an article may mean. A lot of times I'll get sent articles or a text message saying, hey, Tristian, did you see this is what happened to so-and-so, and just really breaking down information in a way that is not only easily able to be understood, but a way that resonates with them from my perspective. So I say lead by example. If you get the shot, talk about your experiences.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I love is everybody's kind of saying the same thing, right? Everything's about your experience. And Christine said it as well. Everybody's experience is going to be different, right? And we all understand that. We know that.
However, we have to be able to listen to understand one another's experience so we know how to best provide a solution to individuals. Like, we can't just paint over one brush, one coat, and everything works and everything is fine. This is a very complex challenge for us that are going to take some real complex solutions. But I think it starts with what we're doing right now today, and it's having a discussion, acknowledge that it is there and it does exist. Now, from different perspectives, people are saying, hey, this is what we've chosen to do about it. So that's what I appreciate. Ricky, how you doing this afternoon? Then we're still having some challenges here. Ricky, whenever you can, man, we'd love to get some of your input on what we're just talking about today, about some of the distrust that we believe exists within the African-American community as it results to healthcare. Okay. We're gonna continue to work with Ricky as far as getting his technical difficulties in place. But here's what I want to go back to as we talk about the things that are revealers. You know, what happens with the group, and I'm just going to say this because we know that anytime we start talking about race, it becomes this controversial, very heightened thing, right? And so, and I received something last week, honestly and truly, because we were doing something, and I got an email. Somebody says, hey, man, please stop talking about race, okay? And again, I'm not talking about race from a standpoint to be combative about it. I'm talking about it as a way that we can connect over it. And so one of the things that, you know, Christine, one of the reasons why I asked you on here is when we had a conversation, and it was that very first meeting that was had with this cohort of different organizations, man, Christine just came right out and says, hey, man, there's a distrust in the Black community with healthcare. And I was like, mind blown. This is a white sister saying this. This don't make a lot of sense to me, but hey, I'm running with Christine. Like, yeah. And I said, Christine, listen, tell me why you, as, man, my sister who has to look different from me, why is it that you feel that this is so prevalent? And this is not a combative thing for us to talk about, but this is something for us to lean into. So is this okay for us to lean into this type of discussion?
I think the only thing that's not okay is for us not to lean into it, because that's what has gotten us to where we are so far. This is a topic that we are working on actively at GAR Foundation among our own staff, with our board, you know, and our board is a group of people who are corporate leaders. They tend to be older, at least older than the staff. And they've had a life path where, you know, in traditional organizations where people didn't talk about race, like it was, you know, you were putting your career in some jeopardy if you talked about race. It's just taboo. And I think as a result of that, it's like, you know, if your football players had a game coming up, coach, you wouldn't tell them, you know, for the 6 months prior, don't work out, don't get any exercise. All their muscles would atrophy. They would be very ineffective in the game, right? So absolutely. I think if we all say, just don't talk about race, just avoid it. You're just going to offend people. You're going to say the wrong thing. You know, then our muscle for knowing how to do it atrophies. Whatever good instinct we might have had at the start, even that you can get in your own head and talk yourself out of saying anything at all. So we figure we know that it's a difficult topic. We know there are a lot of people who have had really difficult experiences throughout their life related to race and to the way our society handles race. So there's risk in having this conversation. There's risk you're going to say the wrong thing or hurt somebody, or you're going to say something and you're going to learn that was not constructive and helpful to say it that way. Think about it from this perspective. You ought to present it this way next time. But without that exchange and interplay, and without trying and giving each other some grace and just getting in there, we're never going to get better at this. So we say, let's try.
Absolutely. And Bronlynn, tell me something. Why is this so important to you? I mean, when you called me, like you wasn't this person. You know, you called me. I'm not saying that you wasn't happy. You were happy, but you were fired up. Like, you're like, man, I want to lean into this more. So tell me, why is this so important to you?
I mean, health is an essential part of the well-being of a person. And I think about everything that the Black community has gone through. I think of the well-known Tuskegee experiment. I think of Jason Marin, or James Marin Sims, the father of modern gynecology, experimenting on enslaved women. I think of forced sterilizations. I see this history of harm done to the Black community, and I see how this pain, how this horrific these horrific things have reverberated through our history to present day. And then we have this pandemic that has shown a harsh light on everything that this nation has done, and it makes me angry, and it makes me frustrated, and it makes me want to do something. It makes me want to fix it. And I know that, GAR, like our dollars, we are a drop in the bucket when it comes to our financial support in the public health sphere. We know that. But working together with these amazing partners, you included, and our health system, we could at least try. We can at least make some forward movement. We can at least start the conversation.
You know what? That was beautiful. And a shout out to our healthcare systems here in the city of Akron, SUMA, Akron Children's, and Akron General Cleveland Clinic, because I think all of them at one time or another have put on some type of webinar just talking about the vaccine, the importance of getting it, the myths and the facts of the vaccine. So thank you all so much for, if you will, meeting people exactly where they are. So I want to come back to you here, Tristian, just knowing that, and anybody that's out there listening, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I have somebody that will get them to me, and we'll make sure we ask them. But as a medical professional, you're kind of in that middle role. And I want to ask you, and this is just going to be a straight up question, was this some of your desire and reason why you went into the medical field? Is that going back to experiences that maybe there was some African Americans that needed to see someone that looked like them in this profession?
Oh, yeah. And I think when we first had our conversation about doing this, I was very transparent. So I've been a nurse for about 8-9 years now. And I decided to go into advanced practice, a mental health nurse practitioner, largely because when I was working as a nurse case manager and outpatient, I noticed that a lot of my clients were getting medications. They were seeing, case managers that did not look like them. And there is overwhelming research that suggests that if you have who like you, that it enhances its lifespan, whether it's the condition itself, there is long-term outcomes that are associated with relatability. And so in my community, I have yet to see an African-American, I hadn't seen a provider until my current role. I happen to have met an African-American psychiatrist, but I am the only mental health nurse practitioner that I know that exists in Akron. And so I felt that it was our duty, not to say that care itself should be contingent on race and culture. I think that there's always a space to learn, and there's always a space that caring can overcome certain gaps. But yeah, I think when you see people and you can understand the relatability, the conversations you have, just seeing my client, half of the conversation is, okay, the Medicare. The other half is just them being transparent. And maybe that barrier is a little easier to overcome because of relatability.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, man. That's interesting. We gotta get more people in that field to keep moving. But thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, man, it goes back to experience, right? That's a common theme, relatability, right? We're going to be able to relate a little bit different. That's okay. Just like no different than, man, I'm going to relate to someone who may be into sports. Like there's a bridge there, if you will, to kind of help a little bit of that distrust that people may come in with. Like, I don't necessarily like going to the dentist, right? But when I walked into my dentist for the first time and I saw that, man, he was a sports fan, man, that gave us something to engage in and talk about. And that becomes that beautiful thing that, man, now we can be and become a little bit more relational. So I really appreciate that. I want to continue to talk about this, and I'm going to keep saying it. We're in the last week of celebrating Black History Month. And so, first of all, this is not the last week of the year that we should be celebrating. Let me just say that right now. But let me know, each one of you, from your platforms that you serve in, that you speak in, what does it mean for you to be having this conversation, first of all, but also being a bridge builder to help to repair any distrust that has existed? What does that mean for you to be a part of that solution right now? And I'm going to start right now, and I'm going to keep you going, Bronlynn, because you got me fired up with that last one. So I'm going to keep you moving in that direction. What keeps you moving in this direction?
I'm a Black woman in a predominantly white space. I have family members that are, deeply impacted by the inequities of our society. I have that lived experience in my own family, in many of my friends. I have always had this deep sense to build bridges and to move us forward and to grow and better society. I always say that I have, 3 things that I live my life by. And one of them is to help people. I've always, whatever I do in this life, I want to help people. And GAR has given me an avenue to do that in a way that I'm greatly appreciative of.
Man, that's awesome. Christine, what keeps you wanting to be this bridge builder of solution for some of this distrust?
First of all, I think some of the bridge building, like Bronlynn, is sort of just who I am. I happen to be the 10th of 10 children, if you can believe that. And I've always had the role in my family, from a young age, of making peace, brokering deals, making sure this person's okay, bringing this person along. Like, I just kind of grew up doing that, and that comes very, very naturally to me. And that's some of what our work is, frankly, in the convening space, especially, where you're trying to take a couple different groups with different agendas and bring them together around one shared objective, and encouraging people to, back off a little on ego, step up over here and be more collaborative. So I think it's a natural thing in that sense. And then the other thing that really drives me is at leadership tables in our community still, I am one of the few women, and there's not a huge amount of diversity. When we look at sort of corporate leadership, civic leadership, government leadership, it's definitely better than it was a handful of years ago, but we still have a very long way to go. And I think since GAR is an organization where, we don't do fundraising, we make grants based on the endowment we have. I feel like, the price I need to pay for that privilege, that, we don't have to sort of ingratiate ourselves to others. So in exchange, I better be asking hard questions, and I better be, I don't have to blow up the room, but I can do it in a way where we can have a constructive conversation. But I better be pushing on some of these issues and making sure that as a community, the leadership is thinking hard about inclusion and building trust and all the stuff that we have neglected over the years.
Man, thank you so much. Christine, I'm telling you right now, I'm giving your number to my children. I have 6 kids. And so they need a consultant to say, how do you negotiate deals? And so you'll be getting a call probably from my oldest child, Virginia, because she needs some wisdom in that and how to kind of run that. So I got 6. It's not 10, but my children need some of what you got. It's coming from that big family.
I would be very eager to consult with any or all of them.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate it. Tristian, listen, you've given your career to being a part of this big bridge building solution. What keeps you on this track? What keeps you saying what I'm doing is good, but man, there's still more to be done?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Christine and Bronlynn, just a new face, don't necessarily cater or haven't seen you before. I grew up in North Akron in Elizabeth Park, single parent home in the projects, welfare. I mean, I've seen it. I've experienced that. I am the people that I want to help. And sometimes, you want to trailblaze to be able to inspire other people. We can make the difference. And I've learned through my own personal life that it just took one person. All it takes is one person just reaching out to you and showing you a different path, showing you that there's something better, and it can change the whole community. So I agree with Christine, negotiating and getting in the middle and fighting for something better is so important.
Wow. I want to thank you all again for taking time out of your day to have this conversation. And I'm not going to say it's a difficult conversation because I don't believe it is. I think it's a needed conversation. I think it's something that we have to do to really love Akron, right? And to really love our community. So, and again, that's no pun intended. I just think that's the truth. And so trust, we know if you read Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, that foundation, if you will, is trust. And so we're not in the realm of just saying, oh man, there's a distrust, there's distrust. We have on people today that are saying, no, we recognize the distrust, and here's what we're choosing to do to help to merge it and to get it better. So I want to say thank you so much to Christine, to Bronlynn, and also to Tristian. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your hearts, and thank you for how you are loving Akron. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You all have a great day, and I'll be right back with my final thoughts.
Looking to take your love for Akron to another level? Start by signing up for Love Akron's monthly emails by visiting loveakron.org. You'll get updates about all the latest Love Akron happenings. You'll learn the ways you can help unify the colors, cultures, and congregations of our communities to see greater Akron thrive. You'll meet changemakers from around the city, plus gain insight on how they're propelling Akron forward, making it a better place to live and work. You learn about Love Akron's partnerships and have an opportunity to connect with local organizations actively making a difference citywide. You'll be inspired through Kemp A's monthly Coach's Corner videos, and so much more. Visit loveakron.org to sign up for an e-newsletter today. That's loveakron.org. And remember, if you don't do anything else today, love Akron.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for your feedback, for showing up, for being a part of this noun to verb movement. I would tell you that it's been easy, that it's been a blast, that it's been a breeze each and every day, but it's been hard. It's been some hard work to, just continue to love Akron and to do this because, man, we have a lot of challenges here. We have not only COVID, not only some of the racial things, some of the equity issues that we have, but also we have the issue of, man, just how do we keep having a conversation and keep talking to one another? And here's the commitment I want to make to everybody that's out there now. I'm not going to stop standing on the faith that I have in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He He's the one that compels me each and every day to get up and to do this work. And knowing that it's hard work, but hey, again, I've said this before, I have to get comfortable in the crucible that is leadership, because it's not going to be easy. It's not one of these things that's going to be comfortable all the time. But as you heard from 3 change makers today, 3 leaders, man, they've made a decision based on experiences to really listen to, understand to other people. And that's why I appreciate so much. And so, again, I just want to give them a shout out and say thank you. And I want to thank all the organizations that are out there in Greater Akron that are leaning into some of these uncomfortable spaces, having some of these conversations about race, not from a perspective of hate or anger, right? But from a perspective of really wanting to connect with one another. Because it's in that connection that we all kind of find our sweet spot that makes us similar, right? And if we can kind of identify those things, now we can begin to walk out these types of solutions. We don't want to stay in a place of distrust. No, we don't. And we don't want to stay in a place of misunderstanding. We want to start leaning into what and acknowledge, what am I not trusting in? And then how do I gain trust? Okay. What am I misunderstanding? And then how do I gain understanding? So I'm just always privileged to come before you on the 1st, 2nd, and 4th Wednesdays of the month to present with change makers that are out there. And if you have any feedback for us, any comments, anything that you would like to see on our Love Akron Live platform, please, man, reach out to us at Love Akron. You can go to our website at loveakron.org. And please, if you're looking for a way to tie in and to engage with us and into what we're doing, please, again, go to our website at loveakron.org. And again, if you don't do anything else, make sure that you love Akron. Have a great day, enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Much greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could have eventually, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment from Love Akron forever.
Hey!